who in Texas had their knives out for black immigrants?
Guessing the context, but my suspicion is
Give
it
me a
has to
name.
do the
Give me a
Attorney
name.
General Ken Paxton and
Give
the
me a
Attorney
name.
General of
Give me a
Louisiana.
name. You
I just
don't-
did.
You don't have a name, do you?
Every now and then, a Senate hearing stops being political theater and becomes something real. What you're about to watch is one of those moments. Senator John Kennedy sat across from three witnesses, a veteran immigration researcher, a retired military general, and a well-known immigration policy advocate. And he did something none of them expected. He read their own words back to them. No tricks, no speeches, just quotes, questions, and silence where the answers should have been. One admitted the system punishes legal immigrants. Another tried to run from a CNN appearance where he called tens of millions of Americans fascists. And the third couldn't explain a racially charged accusation he made on social media against 2 entire states. Roll the full clip, then I'll walk you through every single moment they wish they could take back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Arthur, you are with the Center for Immigration Studies, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
And that's a nonpartisan think tank, is it?
It is, sir.
Okay. The border is an open, bleeding wound, isn't it?
That's a fair way to characterize what's been going on for the last 4 years, sir.
The southern border is chaotic by design, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've been covering the border for 3 decades, and yeah, it's pretty chaotic.
Would it be fair to say that the broken southern border is man-made?
It would be fair to say that, sir, based on policies that have been implemented.
And that man's name is Joe Biden, isn't it?
That would be a fair assessment, yes, Senator.
Under President Biden, if you wait in line for legal immigration, you're a chump, aren't you?
When you look at the benefits that have been given to people and the speed at which they've been released into the United States, I would be chagrined if I were waiting.
You're a
for years.
chump, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
General,
Yes,
you
sir.
believe in open borders, don't you?
I believe in the rule of law, sir.
Right. And it makes you angry that President Trump does not believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Senator, I'm not here to discuss immigration policy. I'm here to discuss whether or not we use the military to enforce it.
And it makes you angry that most Americans don't believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Not in the slightest, sir. Again, I am not here to discuss the immigration policy.
Yeah. Duty, honor, respect, you talked about that
Yes,
in
Senator.
your opening statement. On October 14th of this year, you went on CNN. I want to read you what you said, make sure I'm accurate. Here's what you said. President Trump is not like any sane leader. I'm very proud of General Milley for saying that President Trump is a total fascist. To Bob Woodward, if he, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is calling the president a fascist, I'm so proud of him for breaking that barrier. The challenge is because most MAGA Republicans, they don't understand what fascism is. The reality is that they are, in fact, fascists themselves. Did I read that accurately?
Senator, I am happy to discuss my personal perspectives with you separately at any time. That's not the purpose of the hearing today.
Did I read that accurately?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. You think you're smarter than the American people, don't you?
Absolutely not, Senator. I am here to discuss the use of the military as part of this mass deportation.
You think you're more virtuous than the American people, don't you, General?
Senator, I'm insulted by your comment.
Duty, honor, and respect. You talked about that in your opening statement, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Moran said, I wrote down her words. She said, by their actions, you know what someone's character is like. You agree with that?
Senator, for 35 years, I served my country with absolute honor and distinction, and I will continue to do so.
You agree with what Ms. Moran said?
Of course.
Mr., got a few minutes left.
23 seconds.
Well, actually, you let Ms. Klobuchar go well over, so I'm assuming you'll extend me the
I'll
same.
give you the
courtesy.
same minute I gave to her.
You gave it a minute 20. I timed it.
You're using.
I watched you
using
like a hawk, Dick. Mr. Melnick, Mr. Reichlin Melnick, you believe in open borders too, don't you?
I do not, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay. On November 1st, 2022, you tweeted, both Texas and Louisiana have their knives out for black immigrants. Do you remember that tweet?
I don't, but it's quite possible.
What Texans, it's not only possible, it happened. You're not denying it, are you?
No, I'm saying, referring
What
to the
Texans?
context.
Who are
I
you
actually
talking
don't
to?
know the
Who
context.
are you talking to about?
Just said Ken Paxton.
You don't have a name, do you? You just said it, didn't you?
Just said Ken Paxton.
All right, how about Louisiana? You said Louisiana has its knives out for black immigrants. Who in Louisiana were you talking about?
Again, I'm not certain. That was 2 years ago, and as I'm sure you know, much has happened in the last 2 years.
Well, did you say it?
Again, I do not remember the context,
But you don't,
Senator
you
Kennedy.
said somebody had their knives out from Louisiana for black immigrants, but you don't know who they were? You just said it?
I said the Attorney General of Louisiana and Texas, and I believe this referred to specifically lawsuits brought and arguments that were made in court that the arrival of Haitians
I'm out
and
of time,
others
but I
were
want to get you
inherently
on the
dangerous,
record.
which was
You
not.
Thank you very much, Senator.
believe
Appreciate
that the
your
Attorney
questions.
General at that time of Louisiana had his knives out for black immigrants. That's your testimony.
Given their
Thank you,
litigation
Senator Kennedy.
conduct, yes.
Now, let's slow it down and go through exactly what just happened. Because if you watched that in real time, you caught the highlights, but you might have missed the layers. What Kennedy pulled off in that hearing room wasn't just sharp questioning. It was a strategy. He didn't attack anyone's credentials. He didn't raise his voice. He picked up their own public statements and laid them on the table like playing cards. And one by one, every witness at that table had to decide, do I stand behind what I said, or do I run from it? Spoiler, most of them ran. Let's start at the beginning with Todd Arthur from the Center for Immigration Studies. Kennedy opened with the kind of yes or no questions that politicians usually avoid because they're too direct. Is the border an open wound? Yes. Is the chaos by design? Yes. Is it man-made? Yes. And is the man responsible named Joe Biden? Yes. Now, Arthur isn't some partisan operative. He's a nonpartisan researcher who's studied the border for 30 years. So when Kennedy pushed him on whether legal immigrants waiting in line are being treated like fools under the current system, Arthur didn't sugarcoat it. He said what millions of legal immigrants already feel, that playing by the rules under this administration makes you a chump. That's not commentary. That's testimony. Under oath. Then Kennedy pivoted to the retired general. And this is where the hearing went from interesting to unforgettable. The general had opened his testimony with all the right words: duty, honor, respect. Noble language from a man with 35 years of military service. Nobody in that room questioned his record. But Kennedy wasn't there to talk about the past. He was there to talk about October, specifically October 14th, when this same general sat on CNN and delivered a speech that millions of Americans found deeply offensive. Kennedy read the quote out loud. The general called the sitting president of the United States a fascist. He praised General Milley for saying the same thing. And then he went further. He said most MAGA Republicans don't understand fascism because they themselves are fascists. Now pause on that. We're talking about a man who took an oath to protect every American's right to vote, to believe, to speak freely. And he went on national television and labeled roughly half the country as enemies of democracy, not for what they did, but for how they voted. Then he walked into a Senate hearing room and opened with a speech about honor. Kennedy wasn't about to let that slide. Watch the general's body language when Kennedy confronts him. He immediately tries to redirect, says he'd be happy to discuss his personal views at another time. Translation: not here, not now, not on the record. But Kennedy pressed the question everyone at home was already asking. Do you think you're smarter than the American people? Do you think you're more virtuous? And the general said he was insulted. Let that land for a second. A man who publicly called 75 million voters fascists on cable news said he felt insulted when a senator asked if he considered himself superior. That's not just irony. That's a complete lack of self-awareness captured live on C-SPAN. And then came the final witness, Reichlin Melnick. This exchange was quieter, but in some ways even more revealing. Kennedy asked the same opening question he asked the general. Do you believe in open borders? Reichlin Melnick said no. Okay, fine. But Kennedy didn't stop there. He pulled up a tweet from November 2022 where Reichlin Melnick wrote that both Texas and Louisiana had their knives out for black immigrants. Heavy accusation. Kennedy's follow-up was simple. Who specifically in Louisiana were you talking about? And watch what happens. Reichlin Melnick stumbles. He says he doesn't remember the context. He guesses it might have been about the Attorney General. He's not sure. This is someone who made a public racial accusation against 2 states, and when asked to back it up in a formal hearing, he couldn't name a single person or policy with any confidence. And that right there is the pattern Kennedy exposed across all 3 witnesses. It's not just that they had bad arguments. It's that they operate in an environment where they've never been forced to defend those arguments to someone who actually prepared. They say what they want on CNN. They tweet what they want on social media. They walk into hearing rooms and deliver polished opening statements. But the second someone picks up those statements and asks, "Did you mean this?" the whole thing falls apart. Think about what each witness revealed under pressure. The researcher was the only one who came out clean. He was honest and direct. But the general couldn't reconcile his words about honor with his words on cable news. And the advocate couldn't back up a racially charged claim he broadcast to the entire internet. These are the people who've shaped immigration discourse for years. These are the voices that dominated 4 years of policy debate. And in 6 minutes, Kennedy showed America exactly how thin the foundation was underneath all of it. There's a bigger takeaway here that goes beyond immigration. What Kennedy demonstrated is what real oversight looks like. Not yelling, not grandstanding, not reading a prepared speech into the camera, just preparation. He showed up with their quotes. He asked if the quotes were accurate. And then he let the silence do the work. That's it. That's the whole formula. And it was devastating because the witnesses never expected anyone to actually hold them to their own words. This is why these hearings exist. Not for the headlines, not for the clips, but for the rare moments when someone in power forces someone else in power to answer a straight question with a straight answer. Kennedy got those answers. Some were honest, some were evasive. But all of them told you everything you need to know about who's been steering this conversation and why. If this is the kind of breakdown you want, no spin, no fluff, just what actually happened and what it actually means, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Tell me in the comments, which witness do you think got exposed the hardest? Was it the general who couldn't own his CNN quotes, or the advocate who couldn't explain his own tweet? Drop your take below.